So, everyone, this is Raymond Flotat from mxdwn.com. That's Mixdown. We're here at Annapurna, where there's all kinds of amazing stuff going on, and we're here specifically to speak from Johnny from Annapurna about Mixtape. Hello.
Hey, I'm Johnny Galvatron. How are you?
I'm swell. How's this weekend been for you so far?
Pretty nuts. Like yesterday, there was a moment. I'll tell you the quintessential moment.
Do it.
I was playing with Phil from Xbox,
The Phil.
And I was playing with him for a bit, and then someone comes up and like, Phil's got to leave, and then he's like, thanks, man, and then someone comes into my ear and they're like, Kojima's here, and I'm like, oh Jesus, and then Phil's like, what's the matter? I'm like, Kojima's here, and he's like, okay, and then they're like, Phil, we're leaving, the chopper's leaving, and then Phil's going out, and then he's like, got his hand on my back. He's like, well done, I love the game. And he's like, no, you got to go up there with Kojima. And Kojima's waiting up the stairs there. And I'm just like, having a heart attack. I'm going to die.
Right,
Yeah. That was my moment yesterday. It was nuts.
And it's things like that at this moment, I take it completely unexpected, not scheduled. They just showed up.
No, we had a bunch of that yesterday. Just like Neil Druckmann was here. Tim Schafer was here. So, and then... Yeah, someone turned me to Neil Druckmann as well, and I had nothing to say. I was like, I love your work, Neil.
We were at an appointment, and they literally we have to wait 10 minutes because Neil Druckmann's sitting right there, and we're like, yeah, we get it. We don't feel pushed to the side because of that.
Yeah. When the camera crew comes in first, you're always like, oh, shit.
So, I have to imagine... a game of this depth, there's so much wonderful detail in here. I'm gathering, and tell me if I'm wrong. You probably were working to the last minute up to being here, right?
You're always working up to the last minute. That's game development, isn't it? Whether it's coming out, whether it's a demo, whether it's a trailer, that you work up to the last moment you can. And I think that's just because, especially in an indie team, everyone's has their own creative ego. Everyone is there because they, there's not many salary workers in the video game industry. They're people who are there because they love it. And they're always going to have their own ego about their work. I mean that in an extremely positive way. So you're always trying to fit stuff in up to the last minute to just make it as perfect as you can because it'll last forever. And it's also a weird kind of... it's a weird life in the sense that you're very insular and you're not allowed to show anyone anything and you're not allowed to talk to anyone, and then you're suddenly very popular. Oh, not popular. They're not being popular. You're very public.
You're popular.
Yeah, thanks. You're very public in an instant. Yeah, and it's a weird...
kind of like through the looking glass, right? You've been hiding, building, because of course it's ready. It's not ready.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, everyone, do this.
Yeah. It's a bizarre... life cycle. It's very caterpillar butterfly sort of thing.
So can I share with you my bona fides?
Yes.
Yes, so indeed. For me, I'm a child of the 90s, as we already sunk up on age bracket, right? You were in a comparable age bracket, right? Yeah. And so I grew up in the 90s. I basically spent most of my life obsessed with music. I started a music magazine, which led to an entertainment magazine. So I like to say that Scott Pilgrim versus the World is the first half of my life stapled to the second half of my life, right? Yeah. And of course, have dealt with understanding the best of the classic cuts from that era forever. And then the further we go, I'm a fan of Life is Strange style games and narrative choice games like that. So the first time Mixtape had a trailer out there in the world, long before this recent cycle, I was like, have to be there. Have to see it. I'm ready to cry already.
Yeah, dope.
I was really ready at that point.
I'm going to tear your heart out.
and that's what I figured. I don't want to get into spoilery territory, but in the spirit of good storytelling and foreshadowing, the opening line literally had me going, uh-oh.
Oh, no, it's not, I will say.
Okay.
I will say no one dies.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm fine with saying that. It's not that kind of vibe.
Okay. Because by that opening line, I was like, uh-oh.
No. I don't want to. I think it's more hopeful than that. It's more gentle than that. I don't think it's a lot of those choice. This is you've played it. It's not a choice game. It's more of a linear game.
Correct.
It's more of a mixtape.
Yes.
And yeah, I say it's more in the vein of Dazed and Confused or Wayne's World or Ferris Bueller's Day Off, along those lines. It's not as there's a lot of melodrama in video games, and there's a lot of very plot-based stories in video games, and people do them really well. But we wanted to do something that was more of a hangout film, something that was more character-based. And it's tricky to get the pacing right, but once you do, it works well.
And that was the sense I got from it, from the limited, because it was kind of different pieces of the first arc, I would guess, is what I was seeing, right? Of the first third. And it felt like narrative points mixed with things where you were loosely controlling what was happening. Either skateboarding, and I'm not here to talk shit, but like I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater yesterday. This was more fun skateboarding than that was.
Oh shit!
I know I said that on camera.
I can't comment on this.
Yeah, you should not comment, but I did comment, unfortunately. And I do like that game, but this, I most immediately knew what I was doing. In that game, it took me about 20 minutes to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
So kudos to you.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is with the various vignettes and the memories and the dreamscapes of Mixtape is to know when enough is enough, and not to draw out mechanics and not to draw out things for the sake of playtime. And especially with a game that's story-based, that's narrative-based, and that has this different, many mini-games, pacing is so important. Yeah. So, you know, I understand Tony Hawk's going to have this long build-up to, like, so you can master something and have, you know, 100 hours playing Tony Hawk. But when you're skateboarding for a minute and 45 seconds, you know, it's a different... Yeah. You got to get to the point.
So, I mean, right now couldn't be more a different time than the 90s. And for those of us that were there and saw it happen, I mean, deep unrest, deep upset. People were very unhappy with what was going on at that time. But things were objectively not quite as bad as they are now, right? It's a more fractious, angry time, desperate time. And right here, right now, this moment in this city, this very day, right? Yeah. And so I am curious, is it a point of Halcyon kind of like, it was so great then? What is it that made you want to explore this and go this deep into something? Because, like I said, in terms of the zeitgeist, within 10 seconds, I was like, I know I have to do this.
Yeah, well, I think it comes from two things. I don't think that I'm looking at that period through rose-colored glasses. I don't think that I'm saying that I'm definitely not saying that time was better. And I think it is very loose with when it's set. It could be set in, you know, if you dated the songs, it would be like 1996 or something, you know what I mean? But it's not 1996. It's a mixtape of eras. Like the characters are kind of slightly from different eras, if you would look at their influences and the way they dress. So I don't think I'm trying to say that then was better, but I'm trying to say that the idea that when you're a teenager, everything feels like the end of the world and everything feels super important, and you can feel weird and unsure about your future, that is a universal thing, and that's hopefully what you pick up on. It's that kind of nostalgia, not of like remember the Nintendo 64. It's kind of more the nostalgia of remember when you felt so displaced. And I think it's also fun to view teens, because teens like... And I just remember this about myself. You have no experience, so you define yourself by what you like. And, you know, if someone tells you a list of bands I like and you didn't like those bands, that was just enough for me to not...
You're out.
Yeah, to cut you off, you know. So, yeah, I think that I've rambled on to some point, but there.
No, I get you, and you're on it. And I mean, in all honesty, that effectively, you know, the situation that was in the 90s, mixtapes and mixed CDs, and a little later in the 90s, mixed CDs. Because like you said, kind of not in time. The 90s weren't a mixed CD time, the early 2000s were the mixed CD time.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely a mixtape of stories and mixtape of mediums as well. You can see it's a mixtape of characters, eras, technologies. It's definitely meant to say that this is always the feeling that people have.
Yeah, and I mean, in that time, what's interesting to me, being a person who's deep in music industry dealings, right? In the 90s, people talked a lot about mixtapes, like, oh, hey, I'll make you a tape, or I'm romantically interested in you. Let me show you how I feel through song, right? That's the world I come from. That's very alien to my friends nowadays. But what is interesting is the main character is talking almost immediately about wanting to be a music supervisor, which you didn't hear many people thinking about in those days. Nowadays, it's like an aspirational thing. The music supervisors are the most powerful people in music now. Fast forward there. So I was curious why you centered the main character in that.
Because when you need to get the rights to Joy Division, you have to get a really good musical supervisor. So if you make the main character a musical supervisor and then pitch it that way, you can get whatever you want. I don't mean that, Alex, by the way. I'm just having fun.
I mean, I do know from that a bit of experience, it's sometimes tough to convince players to involve themselves in things like this, and ultimately it can be very pricey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like, I remember there's a bit, because there's More Than This by Roxy Music is later in the game, and Stacy, the main character, she says, you know, Can you imagine like Brian Eno and Brian Ferry, two of the greatest Brians in the same band? Like, what are the odds? And they ring me up and they're like, Brian wants to know where the song is in the game. I'm like, which Brian? They're like, we didn't ask. I'm like, I need to know which Brian.
Which Brian are we talking about?
Yeah. Is it Eno? Is it Ferry? You got to tell me. And then there was like times where there's like, you have to get like 4 or 5 people's permission, and
Because of the
then
different songwriters.
yeah. And one guy was like on a mountain somewhere, and we had to send someone up the mountain, and it was just like bizarre stories about getting each song.
Amazing.
And like trying to get Stan Bush to give up like the 1986 version of The Touch from the Transformers
That's
movie.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, it was like I have stars in my eyes for that stuff. So it was great fun.
I was very happy to see Rainbow show up in the brief segment.
Yeah,
that we're there.
totally.
Yeah,
Dio.
because I'm very proud to say that shortly before he died, I was one of the last people to actually have a photo with Ronnie James Dio.
You killed him?
No, I didn't murder him, but I saw him prior to his
Is
cancer.
this a JD Vance Pope kind of situation?
I mean, probably. Yeah. I'm sure I've made bigger mistakes today in terms of my experience here. But I mean, it was something that, like, because I got indoctrinated into that era of Black Sabbath where he was, and that a friend who was really big into Rainbow, and so we met him, and he was really, really nice. And he died.
I've heard that he was dope.
He was such a nice guy. I mean, Tony Iommi was a little bit like a little more removed.
But you want him to be.
Yes, because he.
If I ever met David Bowie, I really hope that he would have told me to fuck off.
He would have. I know a person who has a story about how he saw David Bowie walking his dog.
Yeah.
And then he literally like went to, oh, you had a nice dog. And then he looked up and it was David Bowie. And he went like this, and David Bowie ran.
Yeah.
Like literally ran as fast as he could.
Yeah. And you can imagine his gait was quite theatrical.
We have that down. Yes, indeed. So one more thing I wanted to ask you about, because of course what we saw was a lot of fun. It was really heartwarming, even in that brief little bit, in terms of both the nostalgia, the fun, the music, the culture, and of course a bygone era that I miss. Sure. I feel nostalgic for it, even if you don't. Yeah. I feel very nostalgic.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, I feel very nostalgic for it. And some of the early trailers kind of portrayed a degree of magical realism, like they were actually able to fly. And I'm wondering if you can comment yet. You might not be able to. In terms of, is that something that's a mechanic that actually fastens into things? Is it more an imaginary thing in their brains, or is that really a part of, like, can they fly?
I think it's not as supernatural.
Okay.
But I would say that, I really like using the medium of games to try and evoke and represent different experiences other than kind of difficulty and overcoming things. Mm-hmm. Like there's how do you show teenage freedom? How do you show the feeling of, there's a level where Rockford's betrayed by her friend, and she kind of, everything turns black and white, and she lifts up and floats backwards through the town, and like that's how I feel when I'm crushed, is that falling feeling as she goes back through the city, back to her home. And I just like being abstract, or even just being quite literal with the medium to try and give the player a different emotional experience.
I will say, as kind of an ending note here, my wife's a huge Cure fan.
Sick.
And so, like, you get deep with Cure people.
Yeah.
There are many eras of Cure.
Yeah.
And where, I don't know if you can say what Cure song.
No, I don't think I can.
Okay, not yet. But it will hinge greatly for a lot of people, right? Because some people.
Oh, no, we got it right. I'm not worried.
Well, we look very much forward to playing more with Mixtape. We really appreciate your time talking to us about it, and this little bit. Mwah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, good to meet you. Thanks, man. That was fun.
It was fun.
That was fun.